A political earthquake just hit the Federal Reserve. I mean, really shaking things up, threatening to reshape who controls our nation's economic destiny. We're talking, of course, about President Donald Trump's firing of Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. This was just back on August 25th, 2025. And this isn't just some minor political spat.
No, not at all. This is really high-stakes stuff. It goes right to the heart of the Fed's independence.
Exactly. And the outcome. It could easily ripple right through your finances. So the Trump administration is saying this removal was for cause.
Right.
They're citing alleged questionable mortgage practices. Specifically, they point to what they call facially contradictory statements in financial documents. The claim is that Cook said she had two primary residences, one in Michigan, one in Georgia, within weeks of each other.
Yeah, and that potentially this could have netted her, tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits.
And the administration's line is pretty clear. Integrity is judged in real time. They're basically saying you don't need a criminal conviction to remove a senior official like this.
That's their stance. But Governor Cook and her lawyers, they're pushing back really hard.
Oh, absolutely.
They're calling the firing unprecedented and illegal. They say it's just a pretext, an excuse for a bigger goal, trying to wrest control of the independent Federal Reserve.
And the markets definitely noticed.
Oh, immediately. We saw 30-year Treasury yields jump up to 4.904%. And gold prices, they hit a two-week high, $3,449.52 an ounce.
Those aren't just numbers on a screen, right?
Yeah.
That shows real investor concern about instability, about where policy might be heading.
Exactly right. Deep-seated concerns.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack the legal side, the constitutional arguments right at the center of this. We'll explore the wider political motivations, too, what might be behind this move.
And crucially, what it all means for the Fed's independence, market stability, the whole picture.
Right. Our mission today is to help you really get a handle on this complex battle and, what it might mean down the line. Okay, so let's start by really digging into these specific allegations against Governor Cook and what the administration actually means by cause here. It seems to kick off with a criminal referral to the Justice Department. This came from William Poult. He's a Trump appointee at the Federal Housing Finance Agency.
Correct. And Polte alleges that Governor Cook got a $203,000 mortgage in Michigan back in June 2021, claimed it as her primary residence.
Okay, but then, and this is the crux of it, just 2 weeks later, July 2021, she allegedly gets another mortgage, $540,000 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Also claiming that one as a primary residence.
Exactly. And apparently there's even a third property, Cambridge.
Yeah.
Claimed as secondary, but reportedly being rented out.
Right, adding another layer. Now, what's really key to understand is how the Trump administration is defining cause here. They aren't waiting for a court judgment.
Yeah.
They're insisting that these facially contradictory statements, these inconsistencies right there on the documents, are, and I quote, more than sufficient ground for removing a senior financial regulator, even without a conviction.
Peter Navarro, former White House counselor, he's been pretty outspoken on this.
Yes, saying integrity is judged in real time. He argues there's historical precedent, presidents removing officials for ethical issues before any trial.
And they stress this isn't trivial stuff.
Yeah.
Federal mortgage fraud, it carries potentially huge penalties, up to 30 years, million-dollar fines per count. It shows how seriously they view these alleged missteps.
Absolutely. The average sentence is around 14 months, so it's definitely not minor.
So just to be clear, their argument is the allegation, the contradiction itself is enough grounds for removal. Doesn't matter what a court decides later.
That's the essence of it. But Cook's counterargument is, equally strong.
Right. Her lawsuit calls the action unprecedented and illegal. A pretext, she says, to grab control of the Fed.
Her lawyers are arguing that this definition of cause used by Trump, it basically has no limiting principle. Meaning, if this standard holds, what stops any president from removing any Fed governor based on, as they put it, chalked up allegations, maybe minor or even manufactured claims, just to serve a political goal?
Okay, so her team is saying for cause has to mean real misconduct, like malfeasance or dereliction of duty while she was serving as governor.
Exactly. And that she has due process rights, notice, a hearing under both the Federal Reserve Act and the Fifth Amendment.
This really gets us to the the bigger fight here, doesn't it? Presidential power versus the Fed's independence.
It absolutely does. This goes way beyond Governor Cook. It's a fundamental battle. And central to the administration's case is this idea, the conservative unitary executive theory.
Explain that a bit.
Well, proponents argue Article 2 of the Constitution gives the entire executive power to the president. And that power, they say, naturally includes the power to remove executive branch officers.
So, under this view, independent agencies like the Fed, they're kind of seen as a problem, like a fourth branch, clashing with the founders' three-branch design.
Precisely. You hear commentators like Josh Hammer saying things like, elected officials, not bureaucrats, should shape monetary policy. The idea is accountability. Elected officials answer to voters. Fed governors don't, not directly.
It's interesting how the Supreme Court fits into this. They seem to be wrestling with it, too.
Oh, definitely. The court has been, as some put it, chipping away at the special status of independent agencies for a while now.
Like in those CeeLo Law and Collins v. Yellen cases.
Exactly. Those cases affirmed presidential removal power over heads of some other independent agencies, but, and this is a big but, in Trump v. Wilcox just earlier this year, the Supreme Court specifically singled out the Fed.
How so?
They called it a uniquely structured, quasi-private entity with a distinct historical tradition. Basically, they treated it as different.
Which sounds complicated. I've heard critics call that judicial Calvin ball, like they're making up rules for the Fed specifically.
Yeah, that's the criticism. Can the Fed really be that unique, given its massive power over the economy? It's a fair question.
Because the whole point of setting up the Fed this way, with those long 14-year terms for governors, was specifically to shield it from politics. Right.
That was the design, to insulate it from short-term political pressures, allow it to focus on long-term economic stability based on data, not election cycles.
And critics see this firing as basically undermining that whole structure.
Yeah.
Pulling the central bank right into the political arena.
It certainly raises that fear. And connecting this back, you can see potential economic motivations driving the politics, which then loops back to affect the markets.
Right. President Trump has been very open about wanting lower interest rates. He believes it could save the country hundreds of billions.
And he stated he wants to get a majority very shortly on the Fed board filled with his own appointees.
Which many people interpret as an attempt to, bend the Fed to his will, get policy aligned with his administration, replace people who aren't seen as loyal enough.
Or replace them with, as some critics phrase it, blind loyalists.
And the markets reacted instantly. As we said, it was swift and telling. Those 30-year Treasury yields spiking to 4.904%.
Gold jumping to over $3,400 an ounce. Investors clearly seeking safety, worried about currency depreciation if the Fed's credibility takes a hit.
Even TPS, the inflation-protected securities, gained traction. Real yields rose to minus 1.2%. That signals real demand for inflation hedges.
It shows investors are genuinely concerned about the future path of inflation and the Fed's ability or willingness to control it if its independence is compromised. They're diversifying into defensive assets.
And then there's this background noise, maybe not so background, about Project 2025.
Right, that conservative policy plan that includes advocating a return to the gold standard. That just throws another layer of further uncertainty into the mix, could completely reshape how U.S. money works.
So it's not just the immediate firing, it's the potential for much bigger, longer-term shifts that have markets on edge.
Definitely. A potentially very different economic landscape.
Now, shifting gears slightly, but still related, there's also discussion around Lisa Cook herself. Beyond just the mortgage stuff, her qualifications, past actions.
Yes, that's part of the narrative, too. Critics like Peter Navarro have argued she has comparatively little scholarship in core areas of monetary economics compared to typical Fed governors.
And her policy stances.
Well, she was initially seen as a dove on interest rates, even when inflation was high. Then she seemed to align with Chairman Powell on keeping rates up, which some critics called artificially high and even partisan.
There was also that other controversy back in 2020.
Ah, yes, involving Harold Olig, the Economics Journal editor. He made some tweets critical of Black Lives Matter and defund the police.
And Cook was involved in calling for his removal.
She was, along with others. There were statements about free speech has its limits, comparisons made. It became quite heated.
And publications like Reason magazine later pointed to this, suggesting maybe a pattern of carelessness or aligning with certain political viewpoints, raising questions about impartiality needed at the Fed.
Right. It's presented by critics as context, suggesting past actions might indicate a certain approach or potential bias relevant to her role as an independent governor. A sort of reminder, as Reason put it, of the political climate back in 2020.
Okay, so you've got the allegations, the big constitutional fight, the market jitters, and these background questions about Cook herself. It's all heading for court now.
Absolutely. Governor Cook has filed suit against President Trump, the Board of Governors Chairman Powell, basically asking the court to step in, confirm her position, let her do her job.
And the judge, Gia Cobb, a Biden appointee, she's put it on an expedited schedule.
Yes. Seems like there's a clear desire to resolve this cloud of uncertainty over the Fed pretty quickly, which makes sense.
It probably won't end there, right? This feels like it's destined for the Supreme Court.
Almost certainly likely bound for the U.S. Supreme Court. It's just too novel, too constitutionally significant.
And the potential outcome there, given the current makeup of the court.
Well, the conservative majority has shown sympathy towards presidential removal power in those other agency cases we mentioned. So it's possible they could allow Cook's removal, maybe even quickly through the shadow docket, those expedited rulings without full arguments.
But it's not a given.
Not at all. It could really come down to the specifics. What exactly does the court consider sufficient evidence of malfeasance? How much leeway does the president actually have under the law to determine that? It's a genuinely open legal question right now.
This is truly an unprecedented moment. When you boil it all down, this deep dive shows this fundamental clash, doesn't it? The president pushing for more executive control using a broad definition of cause.
Colliding head-on with that long-held tradition of Federal Reserve independence, something many see as absolutely vital for keeping our economy stable.
It's not just some abstract legal debate. This has real consequences for all of us, for the economy, for our finances.
Absolutely. And maybe here's something to think about. If those lines between political power and our central bank get permanently blurred, how does that change the trust we all place in our economy, in our currency? What does independence even mean in such a polarized time? And, how do we protect it?